$1 from Donald Trump. To a homeless man in the streets of New York, leaves everyone in tears. On a bitter December morning in Manhattan, when the wind cut like broken glass through even the warmest coat, two men's paths crossed on Fifth Avenue, one worth billions, the other worth less than the cardboard sign he carried. Neither could have predicted how this chance encounter would not only change their lives, but spark a movement that would challenge America's understanding of wealth, worth, and the true meaning of investment. The story that unfolded would leave the nation questioning everything they thought they knew about Donald Trump, and more importantly, about themselves. Thaddeus Bear Blackwell hadn't always lived on the streets. 3 years ago, he'd been Dr. Blackwell, a respected veterinary surgeon with a thriving practice in Boston. But life has a way of writing its own story, and a series of catastrophic events, his daughter's lengthy battle with leukemia, the medical bills that drained his savings, and the depression that followed her loss, had stripped away everything except his dignity, and an unusual gift for understanding both animals and humans in pain. Now, at 62, Bear had become a familiar figure outside Trump Tower, his massive frame and graying beard earning him his nickname among the other homeless individuals who frequented the area. He never begged aggressively, never made anyone feel uncomfortable. Instead, he offered simple observations about life that often stopped hurried New Yorkers in their tracks, making them smile or even laugh despite themselves. That morning, Bear had positioned himself near the tower's entrance, his weather-beaten hands clutching a sign that read, "Sometimes the richest people need $1 more than I do. Want to test that theory?" It was the kind of gentle provocation that had become his trademark, a way of making people think while they decided whether or not to share their spare change. Donald Trump emerged from his building precisely at 9:15 a.m., surrounded by his usual entourage of security personnel and assistants. He was in the midst of dictating something about polling numbers to an aide when Bear's sign caught his eye. The former president paused mid-sentence, an unusual occurrence that made his entire security detail tense up. "You," Trump called out, pointing at Bear. "Come here." The Secret Service agents moved to intercept, but Trump waved them off with an impatient gesture. Bear rose slowly, his arthritic knees protesting the movement, and approached with deliberate care, keeping his hands visible. At his full height, he stood eye to eye with Trump, an imposing figure despite his worn clothing. "That's an interesting sign you've got there," Trump said, studying Bear with an intensity he usually reserved for business negotiations. "Very interesting. Maybe the most interesting sign I've ever seen on Fifth Avenue. And believe me, I've seen a lot of signs." "Thank you, Mr. President," Bear replied, his deep voice carrying the refined accent of his former life. "I find that humor opens more doors than desperation." Trump's eyebrows rose at the unexpected eloquence. "You're asking for $1? "Actually, sir, I'm offering you one," Bear responded, reaching into his coat pocket and producing a crisp, if slightly worn, dollar bill. "You see, I've observed that people in expensive suits often seem more burdened than those of us who carry everything we own on our backs. I thought you might need it more than I do." A crowd had begun to gather, phones raised to capture whatever might unfold. Trump looked at the dollar bill, then at Bear, then at the growing audience. His expression shifted through a series of emotions: surprise, amusement, calculation, and finally, something that looked remarkably like genuine curiosity. "What's your name?" Trump demanded. "Most people call me Bear, but I started life as Thaddeus Blackwell, DVM. DVM? Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, sir. Though these days I mostly just offer free advice to people walking their dogs in the park." Trump's eyes narrowed. "You're a doctor? Living on the street? There's got to be a story there." "There is," Bear confirmed, "but it's not a short one, and I imagine your time is worth considerably more than $1 per minute." It was this response, this combination of humor, dignity, and subtle challenge, that prompted what happened next. Trump turned to his assistant and said something that would soon be replayed on every news channel in America. But before that moment could unfold, before the events that would transform both men's lives could begin, Trump did something that left the gathering crowd truly speechless. He took the dollar. The crowd held its collective breath as Donald Trump examined the worn dollar bill in his hand. The morning sun caught the slight tremor in Bear's extended arm, not from fear, but from the early symptoms of the rheumatoid arthritis he'd been unable to treat for the past 2 years. For a moment, The bustling soundtrack of Manhattan seemed to fade away, leaving only the whisper of winter wind between these two men who stood as living bookends of American capitalism. "Everyone's filming this, you know," Trump said, gesturing to the forest of phones surrounding them. "They all think they're about to catch Donald Trump being cheap, refusing $1 from a homeless man. That would be quite a story, wouldn't it? Go viral. Probably get millions of views." Bear's weathered face creased into a gentle smile. "With respect, Mr. President, I don't think that's the story at all. I think they're filming because they sense something they rarely see anymore, a genuine human moment between two people that society says should never connect." Trump's expression shifted, the media-savvy mask slipping slightly to reveal something more authentic. He gestured to his assistant. "Cancel my next meeting. Actually, cancel everything until noon." Then, to Bear's surprise, Trump pointed to the nearby Trump Tower Cafe. "Let's have coffee. You can tell me that story you mentioned." What followed was a 2-hour conversation that would later be described by witnesses as one of the most remarkable exchanges ever observed in the Trump Tower Cafe. Bear shared the story of his daughter Lily's battle with an aggressive form of leukemia, how he'd sold his veterinary practice to pay for experimental treatments, and how he'd held her hand as she slipped away despite everything modern medicine could offer. "The bills kept coming even after she was gone," Bear explained, his hands wrapped around a cup of hot coffee, his first in weeks. "I'd already sold the practice, the house, my car. But grief does something to your mind. I couldn't focus enough to find work. Couldn't even look at sick animals without seeing Lily in their eyes. One missed payment led to another, and eventually—" He gestured to his worn clothing. Trump, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly leaned forward. "But you're still helping animals. In the park, you said." "It gives me purpose," Bear nodded. "Last week I helped a woman figure out why her dog was limping. Simple case of thorns in the paw. The week before I talked a man through his cat's diabetes care. I can't do surgeries anymore, but I can still ease suffering when I see it." "And the dollar bill idea?" Bear's eyes crinkled. "People need to feel useful, Mr. President. Even those of us who've lost everything. Sometimes offering something, even just $1, helps more than asking for it. Reminds us we're still human, still have value." Trump was silent for a long moment, rolling the dollar bill between his fingers. Finally, he pulled out his phone and made a call that would change everything. "Dominic?" "Yes, I know you're in a meeting. Listen, I want to buy the Anderson building on 43rd. Yes, the whole building. No, I don't care what it costs. And get me Dr. Patricia Montgomery from New York Veterinary Center on the line. Also, call legal. I want to set up a new foundation. Today." Bear watched in confusion as Trump made call after call, his voice rising with that familiar enthusiasm he showed when building something new. Finally, Trump turned back to him, eyes gleaming with purpose. "Here's what's going to happen, Bear. First, we're going to get you medical treatment for those hands. Can't have a veterinary surgeon with arthritic hands, can we?" "Yes, I noticed. I notice everything." Second, I'm creating the Lily Blackwell Foundation. It's going to do 2 things. Help families of children with terminal illnesses avoid bankruptcy, and open free veterinary clinics for people who can't afford pet care. Bear's throat tightened. "Mr. President, I'm not finished," Trump continued. "The Anderson building? It's going to become the first location. You'll be the chief consultant, helping us design a program that combines veterinary care with opportunities for homeless individuals to work with animals. Studies show animal therapy helps with depression, and who knows more about both animals and depression than you?" Tears rolled freely down Bear's cheeks now, disappearing into his gray beard. "Why? Why would you do all this?" Trump held up the dollar bill. "Because you were right. Sometimes the richest people do need $1 more than you do. Not the money, the reminder. The reminder that true wealth isn't in what you have, it's in what you do with it. This $1? He pulled out a pen and signed the bill. "This is going in a frame in my office. And every time some hotshot businessman comes in talking about their latest billion-dollar deal, I'm going to tell them about the homeless veterinarian who taught Donald Trump the true value of $1. The story exploded across social media within hours. The image of Trump and Bear sharing coffee became a symbol of unexpected compassion and connection across social divides. But the real impact unfolded over the following months. The Lilly Blackwell Foundation opened its first clinic 6 months later. Bear, now clean-shaven and wearing a white coat again, cut the ribbon with trembling hands, though this time the tremors were from emotion rather than arthritis. The clinic's waiting room featured a massive photograph of a smiling teenage girl with Lilly's eyes, and beneath it, a framed dollar bill signed by Donald Trump. The foundation's impact rippled outward. Other billionaires, challenged by Trump's example, began creating similar programs in their own cities. The model of combining animal care with opportunities for homeless individuals proved remarkably successful, with several of Bear's former street companions finding new purpose as clinic assistants and animal caregivers. But perhaps the most profound change was in Trump himself. The man known for gilded towers and aggressive business tactics began speaking differently about success and wealth. In interviews, he would often pull out his wallet and show the worn dollar bill he now carried, not the one Bear had given him, that remained framed in his office, but another to remind him of their encounter. "You know what's funny?" he said during one particularly memorable interview. "I've spent my life putting my name on buildings, but the most important thing I've ever built started with a homeless man offering me $1. That's what I call a great return on investment." As for Bear, he never returned to private practice. Instead, he found his true calling training other homeless individuals to work with animals, healing both human and animal hearts in the process. Each new clinic opened by the foundation followed his model, creating what the media dubbed the Bear Necessities Program. And every December, on the anniversary of their meeting, Bear and Trump would meet for coffee at Trump Tower Cafe. Trump would always try to return the dollar, and Bear would always refuse, saying, "Keep it, Mr. President. Some investments should never be cashed in."